the long-term.
Our first hymn for our song service is hymn 135, O Little Town of Bethlehem, 135. We're glad to spread the news of Jesus' birth, and we're going to sing about that in hymn 119, Angels from the Realms of Glory, 119.
Now
Our next hymn is number 567. That's the last one. 1, 2, 3. As with gladness men of old. 123. Now, it's a bit of a new one to me, but we know the tune from For the Beauty of the Earth, so hopefully you'll learn a new one. The words. As with gladness men of old did the guiding star behold, as with joy they held its light, leading onward beaming bright. So most gracious Lord, may we evermore be led to Thee, as with joyful steps they sped to the lowly manger bed, there to bend the knee before Him whom heaven and earth adore. So may we with willing feet ever seek the mercy seat, as they offer gifts most rare at the manger rude and bare. So may we with holy joy, pure and free from sins, alloy all our costliest treasures bring, Christ to Thee, our heavenly King. Holy Jesus, every day keep us in the narrow way, and when earthly things are past, bring our ransomed souls at last, where they need no star to guide, where no clouds our glory hide. If you could stand up for our invocation, which is just the first verse of Have Thine Own Way, Lord, number 567. And if you could then remain standing afterwards while we have a silent prayer at the front. Thank you. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will. While I am waiting, yielded still.
Happy Sabbath. Welcome to Beaudesert SDA Church. Those in the pews, those watching online, I hope that you have a blessed Sabbath. As Neroli brings us our message today. Thank you, Neroli. Who are we praying for this week? Robin and family. Man, we're getting quicker. Excellent. We are reading. All right, let's keep Robin and her family in our prayers this week. Also, our Christmas program is next week. Invite people. Okay. Are there flyers? They're gone missing? There's just a few? Okay, there are a few flyers if you want to hand out to maybe your next door neighbours or something.
Everybody knows where they are, please let us know.
Yeah. All right. Tyres. Tyres are funny things. You get a nice new tyre, looks nice on the inside. We get to get intimate with the inside of tyres. Now, when people get flats, they bring their tyre in, and sometimes, quite easily, you can tell when a tyre is unsavable from the outside. But then there are other tyres that look quite fine on the outside. And it's not until you get into the inside and you open it up that you can see all the damage that's happened inside a tyre. You know, Jesus was talking to the Pharisees and he mentioned that, you know, we look on the outside, but he looks at the inside. How's your inside doing? Is it still holding up strong and doing the job it's meant to do? Or is it broken and making it look like it can do the job, but not really able to? I hope that we can all be the people God wants us to be. And we're here in church, right? We're all trying to worship God. We sin and fall, but he is there and he has come and he has given us a way out. And he can repair us. Let's start our service with singing hymn number 532, Day by Day, if you'd all like to stand. Our offering this week is for our local church budget. If you haven't already given, our offering boxes are in the foyers. If you'd like to now kneel as we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the Sabbath day. We thank you for the rest that it provides. We thank you that we can come and worship you without the distraction of the world and the worries and cares that bombard us day by day. We thank you that you created this world and that you created it for us. You made it beautiful. We know that we have sinned and we have broken that beauty. But we thank you for the beauty of you, that you came and you restored and you will restore us. You have given us the choice and we thank you for that choice. May we all choose to be with you. We know that there are a lot of people that choose not to be with you. And you have told us to go and spread the word to those around about us, that they may have an informed choice. Most people don't know about you and your love. They don't truly know you. They know the little bits that, in Christmas time around, that you came to this world. But even that is fading away with all the glamour and glitz of shops and presents. And just help us to show the true you. We ask that you be with our church as a whole, and we thank you that we belong to a worldwide church. Be especially close with Robin and her family this week. May she feel you close, and that the Holy Spirit empowers her, that she can do the work that you have called her to do. We thank you that you have given us means to live by, and as we return a small portion in our tithes and our offerings, may it go to further your word. Be with us here now. Close us in for this Sabbath hours is our prayer in your name. Amen.
Good morning. How are we? Good. Happy Sabbath. Now, I'm just waiting for the pictures to come up. Now, you might have to all turn around and look at that big screen on there. Well, you could look there, but it's up to you. Now, I've asked Sarah to come along today to share with you about her trip to Nepal. Who knows where Nepal is? Yep. Anyone know where Nepal is? Any ideas? Do you think it's hot or cold? It's in Asia, yep. Thank you. All right. Cold? Sarah, was it cold in Nepal? Use the mic.
It was very cold.
Very cold, okay. Does anyone know what you might find in Nepal? Do you think it's by the ocean, or is it mountains, or mountains?
And Mount Everest.
Mount Everest. Now,
Which is what the pictures are,
probably. Not sure. Did you get to see Mount Everest, Sarah?
No.
No, she went all the way to Nepal and didn't see Mount Everest. It must have been on the wrong side or something. So Sarah went with a bunch of young people from the South Queensland Conference of the Seventh Adventist Church. And here she is, getting ready to go. Actually, if I put my glasses on, I might be able to see a bit better myself. There we go. All right, she's all packed up. She's going with her auntie, my sister, who was one of the leaders of the trip. Now, Sarah, what were you feeling like here?
Scared.
Scared. Why?
I'd never been overseas before.
Since you're a tiny baby and you don't remember?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't really know any of the other kids on the trip, so I was a little bit nervous.
Yep.
But after I'd said goodbye and left home, I was getting excited.
Yeah. Sometimes that saying goodbye is a bit hard, right? Who thinks I'd like to go on an overseas trip? Who's been on an overseas trip? Oh, Wow, aren't you guys very blessed? Anybody been to Nepal? No? India? Have you been to China or Hong Kong? All right, so Sarah flew. You went to Tonga. Oh, and New Zealand. Wow. New Zealand? How lucky is that? Right, so Sarah hopped on a plane and flew to Sydney. Anybody been to Sydney? Yep, okay. Then from Sydney, she flew a long, long way to Hong Kong. How long did that take? 9 hours, okay, a long time in an aeroplane. Then when they got to Hong Kong, they still had to fly to Kathmandu. How long did that take? 4 hours? Is that working? Yes? No? I don't think the mic's working for Sarah now. Sorry. All right, so where's this, Sarah? So put it. Oh, okay. Okay, can you hear Sarah? Yeah. Kathmandu. So that's the capital, I think. Is that right, Sarah? Yes. All right, what do you notice about this picture? Kid? Crowded? Okay, we'll try the yellow mic. What else can you see in the picture? Some people, so that's some of the group. Yeah, did you hear what Tangi said? What did you say? Buildings crowded together, and Tangi Senior said lots of scary electrical wirings. Look at those electrical wirings. Oh, that's a bit, yeah. What did you think about that, Sarah? What was it like in Kathmandu?
It was hard to breathe. The air is very polluted. It's very dirty, and it's very crowded. Incredibly crowded.
Bit different to our nice country air, hey? All right. Now tell me about this puppy dog. Bet you gave it a cuddle, right?
I wanted to.
Okay, why do you think Sarah couldn't give the puppy dog a cuddle or pat it? Children? No, she wanted to pat it, and it probably wanted a pat. But the thing is, over there, the puppy dogs have lots of diseases, because like over here, most of our dogs get vaccinated and we get to take them to the vet and make sure they stay healthy and well. But over there, the dogs just don't, a lot of them don't have anyone that really owns them, do they? And they're just sick. They potentially carry rabies, which means if the puppy dog bites you or scratches you maybe, you could get that, and it's a very nasty disease which can lead to potentially dying. So that's why they weren't allowed to pat them, and the poor puppies looked so sad that Sarah wanted to pat them all the time, right?
This one in particular. Was very sick.
Okay. She said the kids can hear her. The big kids can't. That's the problem, Sarah.
This puppy was very sick. It looked like it was about to drop dead, and it was very sad. So there was other ones playing around it, but it was had its eyes closed and was barely moving. It was very sad.
Yeah. Isn't it sad that all of God's creation has to suffer because humans sinned, eh? All right, Sarah, where's this? How about I sit next to you?
This is a place called Beaudesert, I think. I don't know if I said that right. It's like an ancient temple place. Had a bunch of temples with all their hundreds of gods and stuff that we toured.
Okay, so over there most of them aren't Christian, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they have these temples with their gods that they worship, but they have lots and lots of gods, we just have one God and they have lots. All right, what about this? How pretty is this?
That was the sunrise at Sarangkot, which is a big mountain that's nearly as tall as Kosciuszko, so our tallest mountain in Australia. This hill that we were on was nearly as tall as that, and we were watching the sunrise it's like a big temple Buddha thing as well.
Okay, it's not the mountain, but where you were standing.
On top of the mountain, but we weren't there for that. We were there for the view and the sunrise.
Nice. So lots of valleys and mountains is what I'm guessing here.
That's me and Auntie Nita at the new property for the Three Angels School that they're starting to build on out in the country.
Okay, so how would you like that to be your school? Beautiful river, snow-capped mountains. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? In a minute, Sarah's going to tell us more about the Three Angels and the school over there. Now, where's this?
That's on another hill watching the sunset at a place called the Peace Pagoda, which is once again a temple thing. We had to take our shoes off and walk around in our socks. We weren't allowed to talk. You had to be completely silent out of respect for whatever the god there was. I'm not really sure. I didn't pay too much attention to that.
You were too busy admiring the view, right? All right, so what do you think this looks like, kids? A park or a playground? So, Sarah, why did you put a picture of an old slide in this picture, on this slideshow?
So that's at the Three Angels School. That's their playground. Next to it is a little courtyard about as big as the yard out the back of the church, but it's completely dirt. There's no grass. And that's their outdoor area for the school. The school is in the background across the road, and they don't actually own that piece of ground, and they're actually about to lose it to development, so they're not going to have a playground or anything outdoors to do at their school. They're not going to be able to go outside or play on the playground anymore.
How would you like it if you had to do school all day and you couldn't even go outside and play for a few minutes? Who likes that idea of school? No? So what is the Three Angels School?
Three Angels School is run by the Three Angels, which is a big organisation in Nepal that is all about rescuing trafficked victims, kids who are being used as slaves, child labour, child marriage victims, all that. And they run a school for all these kids, and they have boarding for all these kids, for these kids to be rescued and to get an education so they can change their path in life.
So who wants to be a slave? Imagine that. Imagine being, say, who's 10 here? Were there any 10-year-olds who were child slaves? Yeah? Nearly 10? I think the youngest one you said that they'd rescued was 8 years old. Who's 8? Is anyone here 8? Imagine being a slave, or imagine being told, girls, you had to go and get married now. That's what these kids have in this country, which is pretty sad. And some of them come from other countries too, don't they? So they're at this border town, I think, where they rescue a lot of these young people, and then they're trying to give them a better life by letting them get educated so they can read and write, and they can hopefully also know about Jesus. Do they teach them about Jesus in the school?
Yeah.
Because Sarah said they weren't allowed to talk about, you weren't allowed to talk about, go about trying to give out stuff or anything, were you?
In Nepal, it's illegal for them to advertise themselves as a Christian school, so they can't put that on their signs or any of that. But they have their own church there and everything, and so we're not allowed to. When we went over there, we weren't allowed to wear clothes that had anything about Jesus on it or anything like that. But we could talk about them with inside the school and stuff, like in the church.
All right, so what do you think this is? What do you think they're doing here? Playing game? So this is a cricket match, and apparently they hold this cricket matches every 2 years when the trip goes over. So this trip was like, who's heard of schoolies? Or heard of schoolies? So when grade 12s finish in Australia, for some reason, a lot of them like to go and have a big party for a whole week. But instead of that, not that Sarah finished this year, but every 2 years the conference takes kids over on a bit of a mission and sightseeing trip instead of going partying for a week. So they, every 2 years when they come over, they have a cricket match. Because who likes cricket? Who likes to play cricket? Yeah? Has anyone here played cricket? Oh, we'll have to have a game of cricket one day. It's sort of fun. All right. Oh, what about this picture? Did you see one of them when you came to church this morning wandering down the street? No?
So this is in a place called Chitwan. It's a big, what do you call it, national park, where they have lots of rhinos and elephants, tigers, leopards, all of that. And the town itself is a part of the national park, and so going and walking down the street, you'll often come across elephants and rhinos walking down the street with you, which is pretty cool.
What do you think about that? That'd be pretty cool. What happens if a tiger comes wandering down the street, but?
When the tigers come into the town, which isn't very often, but it does happen, everything gets bolted up. We had in our hotels big locks, big bolts on the outside of our hotel doors, so if a tiger came into town, the hotel staff will come and bolt you into your room and you can't get out.
Wow. Do you think you'd like to walk down the street with an elephant, a rhinoceros, or a tiger? Which one? Elephant? Or rhino? Who wants to walk down the street with a tiger? I'd like to see one. You'd like to see it? Yeah. You know, in heaven we can do that. That's going to be cool. All right, what are you doing here?
We went on a little canoe ride down the river to see some crocodiles and other things, but as you can see, it was incredibly foggy and we couldn't see anything.
So you did see one crocodile just, didn't you? All right. And then you went for a walk through the national park? Is that what this is?
Then we got to... we had to go for a walk, which we didn't know we were going to have to do, but that's okay, to an elephant breeding facility, and we got to see the elephants there. And then we had to walk over a big swinging bridge, which is what we're on there, back to the Jeep to take us back to the hotel.
There we go. There. Now, is that elephant wild?
No.
Okay. What can you see around the elephant's feet? Chain. So that's a domesticated elephant. He's probably hobbled, so he can't run away, I'm guessing. Sarah said he was very bored.
Yeah, so they had quite a few, probably about 12 elephants there, and most of them had little babies with them from different sort of ages. And there was one young male one that he was chained up, and he would pick the chain up and throw it around himself until he was tangled up, and then he would spend about 10 minutes untangling himself, and then he would tangle himself up again straight away because he didn't have anything else to do. He was very bored. And yeah, all the other elephants, they were all very bored looking, very sad.
Oh, now tell me, did you tell me that something happened between an elephant and a rhinoceros on the street?
Yes, I wasn't there, but one of the boys told me they went for a walk down the street and a rhino was walking up the road. And because they ride the elephants down the road, a man was riding his elephant down the road. And the rhino started sort of, not necessarily aggressively, but started approaching the elephant. And the elephant sprayed the rhino with water. And the rhino very promptly turned around and went the other way. So that is the elephant's ways of, I don't know if they're trained to do that or if it's just natural.
Right of way, hey? Yeah. Oh, so how come they're patting this dog?
I kind of this was the dog at the hotel that I saw every morning, and I would give it little air pats, and then one day I decided that I was just going to pat it anyways, and if I got rabies, then so be it. And it was very excited that we wanted to pat it because it was just used to not being loved. But it was raised in the hotel, so it wasn't just a street dog, it actually lived there, and it was very excited when we all decided that we were going to pat it. Okay, it kind of just started with one of us deciding to pat it, and then we were all like, okay, we're all patting it now, and it very much enjoyed that.
So you led them astray?
Potentially.
Just hang on a second.
Sorry. We're having lots of fun today. I think we've only got one more photo, possibly. Is that the end? One more? I think there's one more of the garden. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. All right.
This is called the Garden of Dreams. It was a really nice garden that we went to on our last day, waiting to go to the airport that night. It was a Sabbath, our last day, so we just went to the garden, had a little worship together, and then we kind of all just wandered around the garden, and some people were painting, and we made our own little prayer flags. And yeah, it was really nice end to the trip. It was very peaceful.
So, what do you think about going on a mission trip one day? Who'd like to go on a mission trip? Yeah? Do you think, Sarah, that it's changed you?
Yes.
How?
It's very eye-opening. I think Australia is probably one of the best countries you could grow up in.
Mum was badly injured. This is actually the car in the picture here. Mum was badly injured with a shattered pelvis and bilateral fractured forearms. She was rushed to the PA hospital where she spent several weeks recovering. My uncle was unconscious in the back seat with a broken leg, and he was rushed to the children's hospital. We also spent much time recovering. My grandparents were left with 2 of their 4 children in 2 different hospitals. You imagine how hard that was, the Royal, Brisbane, and then the PA, and having to try and traverse back and forth. And my grandmother didn't drive, so it would have been taxis and buses for her. But my grandparents loved Jesus, and they followed his word. They didn't just talk faith, they lived it. You just ask my dad how he learned about grace and forgiveness. On the day Mum was told she was fit for discharge, my grandparents let my mum be driven home from hospital by my dad. And I think that's just amazing that they would show such understanding, grace and forgiveness to my dad. I don't know if I'd, you think as a parent now, if the last ride my child was in and the car was crashed by their boyfriend and they nearly died, I don't know if I'd be wanting to put them back in that car, but that's what my grandparents did for my dad. And I know that meant so much to him. Grandma was just, my grandma, she was such a cheerful person, always humming her favourite hymns. You know, that's what I remember most about that. My grandma, Violet Godfrey, she would just hum hymns. You go in, she'd be doing the washing and the ironing or the cooking or the cleaning, and she would be humming her favourite hymns. It was just beautiful. And every morning without fail, my grandparents met for the morning devotions, reading the morning watch or a devotional book, and then kneeling to pray. Each day they prayed for all of their children and their families by name. Every single day, every single person. And it was sacred when you knelt in that circle. And my grandma, she would always, when she prayed, she slipped into the these and thous and thines, and it was just beautiful. You know, and you know that's them there on their honeymoon, and then their 50th wedding anniversary. They stayed together forever until my grandma passed away a few years ago. My granddad's still alive. So Mum and Dad went on to get married in January of 1977. Now, Dad was saving up to go to Avondale College to become a minister, but unfortunately for Dad, or maybe fortunately, I turned up unplanned, put it that way. So due to my arrival, Dad didn't become a minister, and I was always told that that was God's plan to protect Dad from being led astray by a certain lecturer down there at the time who, split away from the church and went kind of with some very different for the morning devotions series, reading the morning watch or a devotional book, and then kneeling to pray. So instead, not much money. They lived in a caravan at my grandparents' place, and Dad went to uni, became an accountant. Now uni was free in the few years that Dad did it, so that was a blessing for Dad. He became one of my older uncles. He wanted to be a doctor, and he started out but couldn't afford the uni fees, and that was the end of that. Never mind. After a few years, I was joined by my younger brother Josh, and then a few months later, my younger sister Anita came along. Now, I want to talk about, I guess for me, the testimony of the way that my family instilled faith in me. as a child. So some of my earliest memories are of attending the Sabbath school and Sabbath mornings in the old Mount Gravatt church. So every Sabbath we went to church, attended Sabbath school and church, went for picnics after church. I remember sitting like maybe, I don't know, Tungy or Keisha's age, maybe a little bit younger, and they had a beautiful organ, and I used to just like all the hymns, and I'd love the bass in some of the hymns as they'd run down the bass, the foot pedals on the organ, and just grew up these hymns, just listening to people like we do here singing these beautiful hymns. It was just like, it just had an impact on me. So we weren't allowed to touch the rostrum, not like here where you're allowed, it's a bit hard here, but at that church there was no, like, never would you go on the rostrum as a child. That was like a no. The church was quiet, it was reverent. We had a little hall where we had wonderful socials with our loving church family, and I felt like I grew up with all these extra uncles and aunties and grandparents. These were like family. We spent every Sabbath there together with them. I remember doing adventurers. Back then they had the little booklets, the busy bees and the sunbeams, and we'd colour them in and listen to the teacher on Sabbath afternoons. I only got to do a couple of years of Pathfinders, but I remember learning to march under Mr. Cornell, and he was pretty strict because I think he'd trained for the Vietnam War or something, and so he knew marching, he knew how to do it right. But honours were fun, and at some point we sold our little church near the Zups car parking lot, and then we met at a church, but for Pathfinders we were under the school building at Mount Gravatt. I can remember marching up and down there trying to memorise the memory gems for our test, and these days I owe a lot of my memorised Bible verses and promises back to those days. So put your kids in Pathfinders, get around them and support the families that are doing the adventures in Pathfinders. It makes a difference. I went to school at Mount Gravatt SDA Primary School and later Brisbane Adventist High School, which ultimately turned into Brisbane Adventist College somewhere about the last year I was there. So some of my core memories of Bible time, which we started each school day with, we went through the Old Testament in chronological order, and I have great memories of the Exodus and the stories of the conquest of Canaan. We did school musicals which were Bible-based. I remember being part of the crowd falling down to worship the image in the concert we did on Daniel, while the three stood up and didn't. When we did the one on Naaman, I was in the choir singing about Naaman washing in the Jordan River. I remember going to see the Heritage Singers in Brisbane when they toured in the early 80s. For readers, we had these, as you can see on the screen here, these were the SDA church readers that I grew up learning to read on. And it was always so exciting to get to finish one and get to the next level and it was just great. I loved them. I loved them so much that I've managed to acquire a few, which I have in my little library at home. But these stories were they were great stories, and some of them were about the Adventist pioneers, the missionaries, and so I was being taught all these things through what I was reading. In high school, I can remember studying the book of John, and in one year we read most of the Desire of Ages in Bible class, and I couldn't wait because it was reading aloud and I was hundreds of pages ahead reading, and then, oh, hang on, it's my turn, I better flip back and read that. But I was like, soaked it up. It was an amazing, beautiful book. So at home, Mum would help me to study the lesson every day and learn memory verses. My parents, we'd open Sabbath with the song Day is Dying in the West. When we went riding in the car, Mum and Dad would sing Christian songs and hymns, and it's one of my favourite memories, even though they'd not really sing in tune, but it didn't matter, we still sang praises to God. Friday night meals, we ate amidst candlelight, and we would have favourite meals, like every Friday night for quite a while we would have corn chowder soup, and then a phase we went through was toasted sandwiches of all varieties, and we'd always have like homemade banana milkshakes to finish off with dessert. And then a favourite thing to do on Friday evenings was to turn all the lights out, put on the Heritage Singers record, and lie in the beanbag while we listened to the music. The only trouble was that usually our parents fell asleep. Now that I'm a parent, I get it. But as a kid, I was like, why do you always fall asleep when we do this? Mum, the record's finished, wake up. All right, and then, church family camps was one of the spiritual highlights of the year for me as a kid growing up. I just have the best memories of our family camps at Noosa before it turned into the popular place it is today. We'd have morning and evening devotionals, Sabbath school and church, and afternoon activities on the beach or going walking in the national park. And then, of course, us church kids, and there wasn't, just like here, there was a smattering of kids from, babies through to sort of teens, and I can remember we had the best times playing hide and seek or tag, or it was quite fun. And then later, church camp moved to Hastings Point, which is where these pictures are, I think. And here I can remember one year it was literally my birthday weekend, and that was special because everybody, helped celebrate. It was great. We would go out on the beach and make Bible stories in the sand. And as I got older, the church would ask me to sometimes run a devotional or run the morning worship. And I can remember one camp, I just felt so unworthy to conduct a worship. I probably was about 16 or 17, and I just remember being on my knees and praying in that little room there, and then feeling the Holy Spirit's presence in such a close and special way as I shared about how much Jesus loved us and that he died on the cross for us. And these experiences helped to grow my faith in the Lord. Now, the Mount Gravatt Church Library had a fantastic library when I was a kid. And I read so many great mission books and stories, and I had favourites that I borrowed and re-borrowed again and again until I think the card at the back had my name about 20 times. But they just such an important part of my growing up and building faith in the Lord. And so these days I actually collect as many of these much-loved stories as I can, and I would say to parents, are you reading Christian books to your kids? We have actually a massive, great collection of books in our church library out the back. So set your kids an example, borrow the books, read them. Are you reading them, or are we all just screen-based now? Because I feel like they have a really special role to play, the books. So collect a good variety of Christian books and set up your own personal library in your home. And this is an amalgamated picture, but that's actually one library shelf. And when my kids were younger, we called it the Sabbath bookshelf, so they would differentiate. This was the special things for Sabbath. I mean, you could read them any day of the week, but that was like, as opposed to some of the animal stories or some of our curriculum that we had. Now, we just had so many special people at our church when I was growing up. And look, I get it, we all have faults, and I'm sure they had their faults too, but I loved them so much, And I used to love to give the pastor a hug on the way out after church, when I was a little girl. Like, it was just special. Particularly, I remember Pastor Martin, and it's kind of sad that, like with the child, I get why we have child safety laws, and I'm absolutely an advocate for child safety, but it's a shame that some of those things have gone out because of it, because some people let the kids down. And getting those hugs every week, Pastor Martin would give you the nicest, like, you just have this special hug, and it was just and Pastor Nash, he spent hours writing music for us all to play in church. Some of us played the cornet, trumpets, and so we played in Sabbath school. Before our youth lesson, we'd play all through church, and he would spend hours collating the music and writing it, and some played violins, and we had, I think for a while, we had a tuba player and trombone players. It was great. Probably really noisy, but the church was very patient with us as we perfected our skills a little bit, because I'm sure we weren't that great a lot of the time. And later on, of course, when I was a bit more proficient, I was able to play piano in church too. I remember Pastor Nash whenever he preached, he had a chalkboard. And he was the most beautiful calligraphy writer in chalk. And he also would have art or pictures, and everything would be covered with a piece of paper over it as he preached. I can see Winsome nodding here. And, as he made his points, he would just go to the chalkboard, pull off the piece of paper, and there would be this beautiful writing and pictures, and he would illustrate his sermon. None of this PowerPoint business. He he had the skills. It was amazing. Now, Pastor Nash and his lovely wife studied the Bible with a friend and I. Once a week, they'd pick us up from school. This is about, I think I was in grade 8. Drove us to their home and we had Bible studies. And Mrs. Nash would bring us a lovely fruit juice drink. And after study was completed, we got to swim in their pool till our parents could pick us up. So it was pretty cool. We certainly enjoyed that. Now this has just been difficult. All right. So I was baptised at the age of 13, and in fact it was on this Sabbath 34 years ago that I was baptised in the Mount Gravatt SDA Church at Valmar Street, and I was very happy to get washed clean by Jesus. So the church then included us in many ways, which helped us to grow as Christians. We took we were always, we get the kids up here to help us sing. We were invited to help do things. I remember we used to do little Sabbath school reports. Does anyone remember the little weekly Sabbath school reports? How many people had studied the lesson? And we got asked to come in and do those kinds of things. And then later, as a young adult, Warren and I were asked to be social committee leaders and the Sabbath school directors. So this allowed us the opportunity to serve and to grow our faith. You can see there, that's Warren and I after a Remembrance Day dinner that we'd organised, and then that's in a Sabbath school class that my dad taught there. And so this faith was very, growing up, our faith was real and practical. It wasn't just like a Sabbath thing that you did on Sabbath. So it wasn't just church on Sabbath and then the rest of the week went by and you didn't talk about God. It was so practical. The Bible underpinned how our parents treated people and approached the problems of life, whether it was healthy living or financial issues. Their decision-making was influenced by biblical principles. Mum received a delayed insurance payment from the accident. And I think with this money, years after the accident, they got money out of the third-party damages or something. And with that, they were able to purchase the farm at Park Ridge. And I have to say it's one of the biggest blessings of my life. I don't know how old I was when they purchased the farm, and we didn't live there for a few years. So I remember Sundays being out there all day, running around in the dirt, and, little kids' dream, just getting dirty and having fun and going home just so tired and dirty. But it must have been hard for Mum and Dad because Dad worked full-time during the week, and then, they started farming the land. They grew flowers, veggies to supplement the income Dad made from his accountant job. And worked hard, built the farm up from scratch. So the thing too that was a blessing was that when Mum and Dad bought the blocks, all his brothers, bar one who was Down syndrome, all decided to buy 10 acres each, all next to each other. And they, my dad's younger brother and Dad, they prayed about it with their wives, and they asked, because they were going to draw lots to see who got what block, and so they prayed about it that God would direct the drawing of the lots, and he did, and it was where they all ended up proved to be quite a blessing in the years to come. So eventually Mum and Dad were able to afford to start building a house, and we moved in on my 9th birthday. No floor coverings, bare concrete. The painting wasn't finished inside the cupboards, but you know what, we were in a home and it was beautiful. And so I'm really grateful for that simpleness, and I guess we weren't poverty-stricken like third world country, but we certainly didn't have much money around. It was in those horrible years of interest rates, and so it was tricky. But, it helps you to be grateful for what you have and to stay humble. And I remember when we finally got some carpets and vinyl floor coverings, we felt like kings and queens. It's like amazing. So Mum and Dad grew cucumbers, zucchinis, capsicums and flowers. Nights were filled with brushing the fruit and packing them into cardboard cases. If it was school holidays, I might be allowed to go with Dad to the markets in the early hours of the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock, to go to the Rockley markets and drop off the produce. And I treasured those special daddy-daughter times. And of course, farm gives you opportunity to work, which is always a blessing. And, the older you get, the more you appreciate that. And, that's carried on to my kids getting to spend time Mother's Day pick and things like that on the farm. And then, God just puts the crown on the, my grandparents, my dad's parents lived at Sunnybank. And, Mari would have loved to have moved out to be with her boys, but she was looking after her mum at Sunnybank and stuff. And then I don't think my granddad was quite ready to move. But eventually, what was funny was that Mari used to see a specialist, and I can't remember what for, but a medical specialist. And as they talked, she'd share about her boys and what they were doing. And she happened to be sharing one day about how they'd, all bought this land at Park Ridge and things, or they all lived out there. And the doctor was like, oh, yeah, where's that? And she said, oh, Flesser Road. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, oh, I own all the land nearby, like next door. And he said, you know what? I'll keep that block next door for you. And not only did he keep it, but it wasn't for a few years later that they were able to actually, like when, my great-grandmother had moved to a nursing home, and then the suburbia had sort of crept all around them, and, they needed to move, that he didn't just sell it to them like at the current market price. He sold it to them at the price that had been all those years before when, so God just moved, and so to have my grandparents in there, what a blessing. Like, it's just amazing. God is just so good. So I just think that's been super special. And I probably told this story before, the strawberry story, but this is how I learned that God is real. as well, because I was about 12, I think, or 13, maybe about this time, and our kitchen turned into a strawberry packing warehouse, hundreds of, buckets of strawberries and punnets, and anyway, they had to be sorted, packed into punnets. You just put a plastic covering around with a rubber band and a sticker on it, and so it'd be sitting there at night, and, everyone's tired, but, those were special times. We'd all, like my uncle would come down and we'd all sit there tired, making up funny little songs and ditties and rhymes to just pass the time, general chit-chat and banter. And those are the memories I treasure, those special family times. It's about family. But we had trouble with the strawberries because, there's crows and they like strawberries apparently. And they like to pick the strawberries. The trouble was that they didn't just pick one and eat it. They would pick one, take a little bite out of it, then move on to the next one, take another little bite out, and so on until there was not much left to pick. So Mum and Dad just tried so many ways to scare the crows. I think they put up scarecrow kind of weird things, and then they tried other things, and then Dad even got my uncle's rifle out, crawled up under the trees on the tank, and where he thought the crows couldn't see him, and tried to fire a few shots to try and scare them away. Well, that didn't work. They just went up, and then they went back down to eating the strawberries. And Dad was like, what else can we do? And I remember he came in one Sunday, and he said, right, we pay our tithe. God promises that he'll protect our crops. And so we got down, knelt down on that dining room floor as a family circle, and Dad prayed earnestly to protect those strawberry crops from the crows. And it was a miracle. Not one more strawberry was eaten by a crow. And you know what? I don't recall any crows coming near the farm for about 20 years after this. Long after strawberry days were finished, the crows didn't come. So for this for me was powerful evidence that God's real and keeps his promises. So I know I'm going to have to jump over a few things here, but I was a pretty lonely kid, and didn't seem to be very good at making friends, or if I did, they kept moving at the end of the school year all the time to somewhere else, and I'd have to start over again. But God, my parents were amazing, and they got me a puppy, Cassie. She was my best friend for 10 years when I really needed it through those challenging teenage years, and she followed me everywhere. She was just a constant companion, many a night licking my tears away and giving me faithful love and attention, and that gave me an insight into God's heart, as he's always ready to provide companionship and comfort. A dog doesn't care if you had a bad day or not. They just want to be with you, and they're not worrying about what you wore or what you look like or what you did or said. They're just there for you, and that's God as well. He just is there for the lonely and brokenhearted. So I got 2 other incidents from my teen years. So we did Duke of Edinburgh, and part of that was a canoeing expedition. So we're up Lake Tharabar, paddled up to a campsite, stayed overnight, packed it down, came back. We were all on our own as teenagers, what we were about grade 10 to 12. I think there was a couple of boys at grade 12, and then a couple of girls. There was only 4 of us with 2 canoes. So we coming back, we're tired, we've been paddling down the river for quite a while now. We're coming across this vast lake, and it's not far, Lake Tharabar is not that far from the coast, from the beach. So when the wind gets up in the afternoon, the waves start to get up, the chop builds, and it's hard work paddling. But on this particular day, it was also a little bit scary, because you're in these little canoes that are fairly heavily laden with all our stuff we'd had packed up, and it's choppy, and the waves are starting to come up over the edge of the boat. And I remember we were praying, because we were like, Lord, we're not going to make it, well, not that we weren't going to make it back, but it was getting harder and it was getting scarier, and we were tired. And when we finally got onto the shore, as those canoes hit the shoreline, the wind picked up immensely. And we all went, oh, did you feel that? And we knew that God had held back that stiff afternoon breeze for us. So then again, we knew this God is real that we serve, right? And you'll see a picture here, that's the canoeing expedition as we've just unpacking. And then on the right, right. It's not the best picture, but it's more the Tarago van. We were on a school holiday, one of those rare times when we managed to get away from the farm for a few days, and down to Dubbo we went. And we're on our way home. Anybody familiar with the trip from Moree to Gundawindi? So we're about 20 k's out of Moree when all of a sudden the engine overheated in our car. Now, this is mid-90s, where the days of mobile phones were very rare and the service was terrible. So we had no mobile service. We're stuck on the side of the road. I don't even know we had a mobile back then, but anyway, we waited for ages. everybody whizzed by. Not one person stopped to pull over and see if we're okay. It was really hot. And so finally Mum and Dad were like, well, we've found a bit of water here, and the radiator must have cooled enough for them to open it, put some water in and get in the car. And I think we were driving at 10 kilometres down that highway and praying. And God provide every time, so about every 5 kilometres, just as the engine temperature, like the water would run out because there must have been an issue in the piping or something, and that temperature would start to climb right up. We'd have to stop, and every time we stopped, we were near some sort of water, like the creek, a trough with a windmill that was filling up for the cattle. Somehow we limped back into Moree with God's help, and for us that was another example of God working and caring for us. So this is just about me as a young adult, finished school, and I was pretty unwell, so I didn't study for that year. And I learned, you have those things in your life that you're battling sins and things, and for me it became a very, would God really truly forgive me for my sins? Could he love me despite what I was struggling with? And, I remember talking to my grandmother, and I wanted to read the book of Romans, and she gave me this little book. I don't think it looked like that, but as best I can recall, that was the name of the book, Out of Darkness, Light. And with that book, which is like maybe another paraphrase or something of Romans, I was able to work my way through Romans, and it was the most special time because God became really real to me here. He literally came himself. His presence was there every day. And I studied and discovered that God really could forgive and love me, and that was just amazing. Beautiful time. So I'm just conscious of the time here. Oops. So I learned to fly a plane. It's where I met my wonderful husband. We went on a flight together one day before we were actually dating. I just had been studying really hard and wanted a break, and he was an instructor, and I said, let's do a navigational exercise, and he said, yeah, I'll do the navving and you can just do the flying. So that's perfect for me. I didn't want all the brain stress of that. And I didn't really know Warren that well. We'd met only maybe 2 or 3 times before that day, and we're on the flight, and he was wearing a scarf thing around his neck because it was, I don't know, probably Easter, wasn't it? I think Anzac Day, yeah. And it was a bit cool up, and we were flying above Beachmont, and all of a sudden the propeller went clunk, 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 and as you can see, it's an open cockpit, and the propeller sits behind where we sat, and we need to do an emergency landing, looking around, and then clunk, 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 and Warren looks around at the back, and he sees that his scarf is now hanging off the propeller, so the propeller's not working properly, and in that moment it's but suddenly it somehow miraculously freed itself, which I don't feel like it should have, but it didn't. It blew off and never to be seen again. You might find it one day when you're up at Nandarran somewhere. But, I remember Warren saying to me, I think someone upstairs is looking after us. Now, I got ribbed about that a lot by some of the other people at the flying school. And so maybe because of the adrenaline that was up, I was like, you better believe it. He was probably like, oh, she's a bit aggressive about this. But he was actually super serious. And I remember we got safely to this little airstrip at Tiagara. Warren said, I want to ask you some questions about God and why are you vegetarian? And, we spent the next 3 hours under that aircraft wing talking about Jesus and God. And Warren started coming to church with me, and we did Bible studies. And so next year he was baptised and we got married. God's given us 3 beautiful children. And he's been faithful throughout the years of raising our children. He's faithful even when I'm not, and that's amazing. Lest you think everything in our life was amazing and incredible and easy, it's not. I'm only picking highlights here or definitive things. There's been plenty of hard places, and so this is one of them. So after Sarah was born, we had a miscarriage, and then after that, we found out we were expecting again. But at 16 weeks pregnant, I went into early labour and delivered a tiny, perfect baby boy. This was the darkest moment of my life, the valley of the shadow of death. Yet even here, God was with us, holding us in his compassionate arms of love. So many things he provided to us on the day that I just know it was God. Whether it was the staff that were on, because there's nothing worse than going to your own local hospital to turn up and knowing who you may or may not be on and going, oh, I hope that person's not on, and, you know. Anyway, even the paramedic that came to get me after I experienced some complications of labour, to the midwives who were then at the other end so caring and understanding the grief I was experiencing, my heart was totally broken in 1,000 pieces at the death of this much-wanted baby boy. Yet I know God was with us. He was with us. My sister, I remember she dropped everything, came out to stay. Our church family at the time, we went to Harrisville, and they came out and ministered to us and cared for us. And the biggest gift was that God gave us a place called Wooleye. You know, anniversary of when the baby was due. Of course, he'd come months too early. We needed to grieve, and he led us to this little quiet town called Wooleye. It's between the river and the ocean. It is the most amazing place with nature, and that's where God can sometimes get your attention. And every year that we went for 5 years, every week, that weekend in October for 5 years. Every time he gave us something new or different, whether it was like I remember the first year we went, the weather was terrible on the Friday, the Sabbath, that was the due date, and the weather was perfect for that day. And then it was terrible again the next day. And there was sparkling, every coloured stone or shell you could see was just, the beach was scattered and the whales were breaching. And it was like God came down and literally hugged us. And he did that every year for 5 years. Just, you know, he's with you even when it's tough on this earth. And he reminds us we have the hope of seeing Benjamin again on the resurrection day. And so I could tell you all sorts of things that God's done in my kids' lives, but that's their story to tell. Sufficient to say I'm truly blessed to have been brought up as a Seventh-day Adventist, to know Jesus as a friend and saviour, Redeemer and coming King, to have faithful parents, grandparents and family love Jesus and have reflected his love to me throughout my life, to live by the 10 Commandments, to keep the seventh-day Sabbath, to pay tithe, to forgive, to look for the best in others, not drink alcohol, to be part of this church family. Jesus told the man to go home and tell his friends and families what great things the Lord has done, and that's what I've done with you today. My church family here in Beaudesert, I've told you what great things the Lord's done in my life, and only just some of them. So I pray that my testimony has been encouragement to you today, and most of all that you want to be blessed by our great God who loves us so much. Would you sing with me, I Know Whom I Have Believed? 511, please.
No, I am worthy.
Father in heaven, to you be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen.